I've been going back and forth about making some kind of content, like maybe a retrospective about Mortal Kombat 11 for a while, but with Mortal Kombat 1 coming out, I feel like the elephant in the room needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. And for me, that elephant in the room is going to be the port version of the game. If you're someone of means, which means you own both a ninth generation console and a beefy gaming PC, or maybe you own a ninth generation console like a PS5 or an Xbox Series S or X and a Switch, then you're gonna want to be careful about which version of the game you purchase. Before we get started, some background on me. I'm relatively new to the NRS scene as a competitor, but I did play Mortal Kombat 9 and 10 on my home consoles. When Mortal Kombat 11 came out, I participated in my local tournaments and I even went to EVO 2019 to compete. I made it out of day one pools and I was really proud of myself. I was active in my local scene up until the pandemic forced us to kind of take everything down and put everything on hold. After that, I actively played online, but between work and school and some life situation things, one day I just put the game down and never really came back. Once Aftermath came out, I played casually again, but I never felt the itch to go back to the game. As far as I can tell, I was the only person at my local that played the game on PC, so I had some unique gripes about the port that a lot of other people didn't really get exposed to. When Mortal Kombat 11 launched on PS4, Xbox One, Steam, Switch, and had a short-lived Discord version, there were issues with the ports. When the game officially launched, the port version on PC and Switch was delayed by about 12 hours, so instead of having an exciting kind of midnight launch event between all the various versions, we had to wait. Most of us just ended up going back to bed. And I don't understand what the deal was with that. There have been simultaneous worldwide launches for games that are on consoles and on Steam and on Switch. It's happened before Mortal Kombat 11 came out, it happened around the same time Mortal Kombat 11 came out, and it's going to continue to happen now that Mortal Kombat 11 has come out. It's not rocket science. You just send off a couple emails. On launch day, a lot of people kind of went to Reddit and the official forums and the official Discord to kind of ask for updates and guidance and just figure out, hey, everybody else gets to play the game. What's the status on the version that I bought? The response from a lot of the community leaders, I'm not sure if NRS's community staff was involved with this decision, but a lot of people got either banned from the subreddit or had their threads taken down on Steam. It was just a bad look across the board. The launch of the game kind of set the tone for how Shiver Entertainment and QLOC were going to handle the ports, because for the entire life cycle of the game, with one exception that I'll get to later, balance patches, bug fixes, and feature updates on the Steam, Windows, and Switch versions of the game, they were about a week late, consistently, every single time. One of the biggest patches in the game's early life added the third tournament variation to every character in the game, and that was released a week late for PC and Switch. There was also the final patch of the game, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, the end of life patch. That was also a week late on PC and Switch. So if you were someone that wanted to go to your local events and play against other people that were running the game on the PS4 or Xbox One, well, you had to be mindful of that. There was actually even a single time that I can think of right now where I brought my PC over to the tournament to act as another kind of platform to run the game on if we didn't have enough consoles. And we realized after I got there that the version of the game that I had on my PC was a different version of the game than they were running on the PS4. The only part of this game that had a synchronized launch was the Aftermath story DLC, the $40 expansion. So I guess there just wasn't enough monetary incentive to get the balance patches and bug fixes out on time. For the Switch port, I'll gloss over the graphics. Okay, it's impressive that Shiver Entertainment was able to keep as much graphical fidelity on the characters with such a power differential between the platforms. What I've been told is that there's an always online requirement that makes it impossible to play the game on the go, so that just robs the platform of one of its main selling points. There's also issues with the crypt being completely unplayable, at launch at least. There are also noticeable drops in the game's frame rate performance on certain stages. In fact, I've been told that the Coliseum was the worst one. In fact, if you want to see this yourself, you can go over to the channel of FGC YouTuber Maximilian Dude to see how the game performed on the Switch at launch. I'll drop a link in the description. To their credit, Schiffer Entertainment did release patches to try and improve crypt performance, but I did some digging on Reddit, and I guess people's mileage varied on that. Going back again to the PC, the launch of the game was incredibly rough. There were issues with the game crashing on launch. There were issues with the game causing issues with people's microphones. It would introduce this weird popping sound. There were issues with the game crashing when people would try to use their record and playback functions in the training mode. So if you want to see it for yourself, actually, you can go over to the FGC commentator Sajam's channel on YouTube, and you can watch it with your own eyes. Again, link in the description, but it was awful. I personally didn't have issues, but I know a lot of people did, just going on Reddit or Steam. On top of the other PC issues, there was a complete lack of ultra widescreen support in the cutscenes. And I know this sounds like a rich guy problem, but it's just another symptom of a sloppy port. The story cutscenes in ultra wide resolutions were relegated to a little box on screen that was surrounded by black letterbox borders, so which would fade in and out after, the transition to and from gameplay. So it doesn't sound like much, but there's something like 5 or 6 hours of cutscenes in the game, if you include the main story and the Aftermath DLC. And I don't know about you, but if I'm watching 3 movies on a screen, I feel like they should take up the whole screen. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is this weird gameplay decision that NRS and QLOC made regarding the game itself. So during the game, there are cinematic moves called Crushing blows and fatal blows. The Crushing blows happen during certain moments in gameplay after achieving certain requirements, and the fatal blow is like your desperation super that you get access to when you drop below a certain amount of life. During these cinematic moves, the frame rate on both versions of the game at launch was locked to 30 frames per second. During the gameplay, the game is locked at 60 frames per second, and that's super important for fighting games due to the way that the game logic and the frame data interact. Generally, it's accepted that there are 60 frames in a second, and the game is locked to that. I'm not a frame rate snob, but fighting games have to have a consistent frame rate for the gameplay to function the way that the developers intend for it to function. When a crushing blow happens, the game drops from 60 frames to 30, and when it's over, it goes back up to 60. So these aren't just random moves that happen sometimes. They're an integral part of people's kits, and like certain characters cannot function without their crushing blows. It's why certain characters are better than other characters in Mortal Kombat 11. So about a month after the game came out, QLOC, who handled the PC port, added a 60 FPS mode to the PC port and only to the PC port. The feature was never added to the console versions, and even when the game was ported to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X versions, even on the more powerful hardware, this was not a feature that was ever added to those games. So moving between versions, you'd end up dropping crushing blow combos, or at least I did. And I know the solution is to get good or turn off the more consistent experience that I'd come to prefer, but this all kind of feeds back to my frustration about the game versions not ever having like a persistent gameplay environment at any point. I'm over here getting an officially approved, supported version of the gameplay experience, and everyone else on the other version of the game is also getting an officially approved version of the game environment. But it's just sad. Okay, there's only like 2 weeks in the game's life where they were ever directly comparable. When crossplay was added to the title, the Switch and PC players also got shafted again. The only caveat to that is that PC players that played through the Windows or Xbox Store, as it's now called, they can play against other Xbox players. Xbox players can play against PS5 players. But PC players on Steam can't even play with PC players on the Xbox Store, and Switch players are just locked out entirely. And to feed into my concerns about how the port's going to be in MK1, crossplay doesn't even get mentioned on the website. There used to be a section mentioning that crossplay would be added after launch, just like MK11, but what that means is anyone's guess. It could mean we get full crossplay across the board. Everyone can play with everybody else. Or it can be a repeat of the same haphazard bullshit that divides the player base now. There's no way to tell, and the developers haven't said anything. at time of recording, that section is no longer on the FAQ. They put it up there and then they took it down later. And you know, that doesn't sound great, and the lack of crossplay in the betas, both the one that just happened recently and the one that's coming up, that's not really a good sign. I'd love to be an optimist about this game, but I feel like it's best to keep the expectations low. And to be clear, I'll probably pick the game up because I love this series. Like, I just don't want other people that aren't aware of the issues at hand to get blindsided by them. I want them to go in with open eyes. You know, I love Mortal Kombat. My first ever experiences with Mortal Kombat were playing the Mortal Kombat 2 port on the Sega Game Gear and staying up really late until my parents went to bed so that I could watch the movie on super low volume on the living room TV with my older brother. You know, I love this series, and I'll be a Sub-Zero main probably until the day I die. But I'm tired. I'm tired of crappy game ports in the year of our Lord Luigi Mario 2023. I don't expect this video to like blow up and get a gazillion views and make Netherrealm come to the table and tell us what's going on. Hey, I want to make sure that if someone has a choice available to them to get the flagship version of the game that's on either the Xbox or PlayStation console, and getting a port version of the game on either the Switch or PC, I want them to be able to make an informed decision. I want them to be able to choose knowingly to get the version of the game that the developers are going to support. And if this video spares even one single other person from becoming as tired of crappy ports as I am, I would say that the work that went into researching and recording and editing this video is worth it. Thank you for watching.